Well, good evening. Glad you could join us here on TV47 Weekend. My name is Musa Salah. Let's now take a look at the top stories making headlines tonight. Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai says a special team has been put together to investigate the murder of 2 of the 4 men who went missing 10 days ago and their bodies later found in KIAMBU and Murang'a. Also tonight, Interior CS bans romantic relationship between senior police officers and their juniors, saying the trend is fueling unprofessionalism in the service. Plus, ODM parliamentarians admit there are differences between them over the BBI bill, but dismiss them as mere sibling rivalry. Will the feuds dent the BBI process? And residents of Quahota Estate in Naivasha make a historic pilgrim back to their homes that had been inundated for close to 2 years. The lake waters have begun to recede. Welcome to the broadcast. Mini Mbesa is our sign language interpreter. TV47 Weekend begins right now. The Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai has announced that a special task force of investigators has begun a probe into the killing of 2 of the 4 men believed to have been abducted outside Enkare Hotel in KITENGELA 10 days ago. Speaking in Nyeri, Mutyambai has revealed that the task force has a month to solve the mysterious murders that have baffled the nation, and as David Mudoka now reports, 2 families are still in the dark on the whereabouts of their kin after the family of Jaco Chieng, whose body had been rumored to have been found in Murang'a, refuted the claims.
Outside the Murang'a government mortuary, emotions ran high as 2 families of the 4 men who vanished in broad daylight 10 days ago outside a hotel in Kitengela, Kajiado County, convened at the morgue. As the family of Elijah Obwong identified one of the bodies that had lay in the mortuary for 9 days as that of their kin, it was the turn for Jaco Chieng's family to confirm if a body that had been at a river and rumored to be that of their kin was indeed theirs. But the hopes of Chieng's family of finally finding closure, albeit at a painful cost, after 10 days of nightmare were quickly dashed when they realized that the body they so much wished was of their kin was not. The painful realization rendering the search for their kin far from over.
If there is anything they can do, then we can appreciate. We still have hope. Venye tulisikia ati Ben amepatikana na huyu Eli. We hope.
The body is still fresh. Awezi ukasema imekaka, tuko confused. We know our brother. Hata the height huyu ni tola kidogo. Miguu zake hizi zinakaa kubwa, Jaka kwa navaa ni miguu yake haikuwa kubwa sana.
As for the family of Obwong, whose family was found by sand harvesters along River Mukungai just a day after he and his friends had gone missing, the state of the body seemed to have opened a fresh set of wounds in their hearts. According to Obwong's mother, Caroline Obwong, hands had been chopped off the body, revealing the painful death Obwong faced in the hands of his killers.
Ni uchungu sana kama mimi mama mzazi, nikimtazama mwili wake pale ni kama mtoto wangu walimtesa sana, walimpiga vibaya kabla wamuue.
Questions have continued to be raised on whose body it is then that was found at River Mathioya, just a few meters from River Mukungai, where sand harvesters stumbled upon Obwong's body. Both bodies had been stuffed in gunny bags and bore signs of torture, just as that of their colleague Benjamin Imbai, whose body was identified by relatives at General Cargo Mortuary in Thika on Friday. This means that the whereabouts of Jaco Chieng and a 4th man named Brian, who are feared dead, are still unknown at a time when no arrests have been made relating to the heinous acts.
We can't be having cases day in, day out of people disappearing and then later found dead. Seriously, do we have second-class citizens in this country?
How the police have made no headway regarding the suspected kidnappings and murders, even after the bodies were found way past the confines of the heavily guarded 5 red-zoned counties, among them Kajiado, where the quartet had been last spotted, is raising eyebrows. Did some officers allow them to be driven past the roadblock on Thika Road, or did the murderers slip under their watch?
This morning, I've directed the DCI team from Homicide Unit to come up with a special team to investigate this matter to the bottom of the matter.
The manner in which the murders were conducted points at a well-scripted and executed plot, possibly by rogue officers on an extrajudicial mission.
As I talk now, the team has already started its work, and I'm expecting them to brief me in a month's time who killed these people.
It is not the first time rogue police officers have been involved in such missions. In 2016, 4 police officers from Lolongo, Machakos County, abducted and killed lawyer Willie Kimani, his client and a taxi driver, before dumping Kimani's body at a river. Whether this was a coincidence or not, the clock is ticking on investigators tasked with solving the murders puzzle. David Mudhoka, TV47.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i has moved to outlaw romantic relationships among police officers, saying the police service will no longer allow senior officers to marry their juniors. Speaking while launching a cadet training exercise for 300 graduate police officers at the Kiganjo Police College in Nyeri on Friday, Matiang'i said officers found to have formalized such unions will have to make the difficult decision of having to choose whom between them would quit the service, further citing indiscipline among officers and sexual harassment directly linked to affairs within the service.
As the police service in its entirety braces the negative image across the country over the years, Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i is now calling out on his officers, citing that indiscipline among police officers and sexual harassment cases reported within the service is caused by the intermingling among the officers. Matiang'i, who spoke on Friday while presiding over the pass-out parade of 300 cadet police officers in Kiganjo, Nyeri County, said the lack of a stringent ecosystem of relations has fueled the rise in sexual harassment cases in the service. He notes that a number of cases are under investigation.
Cases of sexual harassment in the service will be orderly room proceedings type of cases, and the officers who are involved should be stripped of their ranks and gotten out of the service.
The CS further cautioned all senior officers found romantically involved with their juniors, adding that the service would no longer condone such relationships.
We do not expect you to live here and go to have affairs with your constables whom you are managing. When it gets to that point, one of you has to leave, because we must maintain a certain standard of conduct in the police service.
In view of the police standing orders, the CS aims to change how officers relate with one another and the public in general. He further urged the media and the public, who often criticize officers harshly, to adopt a respectful attitude in the spirit of patriotism. The new regulations are expected to take effect in July this year. Ruth Mulandi, TV47.
A total of 13 COVID-19 cases at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport have been flagged off as possible Indian COVID-19 variant following the retesting of all passengers from India upon arrival in the country. According to Health CS Mutahi Kagwe, the 13 cases came with a negative COVID-19 certificate only to test positive upon retesting. The government is yet to effect a ban on all flights between Kenya and India following a surge in COVID-19 cases in that country. Zainab Mohammed with the details.
Following a dangerously high surge of COVID-19 cases in India, the government imposed a ban on all passenger flights between Kenya and India and ordered for mandatory retesting of all passengers arriving from that country, a directive that is seemingly bearing fruits as the government has now flagged off a total of 13 cases at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport as possible cases of the Indian COVID-19 variant. According to Health CS Mutahi Kagwe, the 13 cases came in with a negative COVID-19 certificate only to test positive upon retesting.
We have discovered and found and picked up not less than 13 people, from India who have got negative certificates, but who have come in and we have tested them again because you are subject to a second test.
Kagwe now says the new mandatory COVID-19 testing upon arrival in the country will from now on be implemented among passengers arriving from all over the world and not just from India.
And in fact, Mr. Chairman, today we ordered not just India, not just the people coming from India, but people coming from anywhere. We now want to roll out the possible of a second test in any event when people come into our country.
At midnight Saturday, all flights from India will be halted, with all those arriving from that Asian country being forced into a 14-day mandatory quarantine at their own cost.
Effective Saturday midnight, there will be no Indians coming into Kenya, whether through a direct flight on Kenya Airways or through any other destination.
The Indian COVID strain is said to be more dangerous and highly contagious, with its presence confirmed in at least 17 countries, including neighboring Uganda. Meanwhile, Kenya has today recorded a total of 497 new COVID-19 cases, 441 recoveries, and 17 new deaths. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
Thank you, Zainab Mohammed, for that report. Keep talking to us. 22047 is our SMS line. You can also find us on social media, TV47 Kenya on Facebook, as well as TV47 KE on Twitter. The hashtag to use is TV47 Weekend. Now, President Kenyatta has said the coronavirus pandemic has temporarily set back the global agenda of ensuring young people aged between 10 to 24 years are in education, training or employment by 2030. The president noted that globally, schools for more than 168 million children have been closed for almost an entire year due to COVID-19 lockdowns. The president spoke this evening during a Generation Unlimited Global Leadership Council meeting held virtually and attended by Prime Minister Alexander De Croo of Belgium, President Mokgweetsi Masisi of Botswana, and former British PM Gordon Brown.
Turn to your brother in Botswana. President,
with many of the corporate and government organizations that are represented here today, actually doing what they're.
Young people have lost jobs, livelihoods, and others have been exposed to personal risks such as teenage pregnancies, as well as alcohol and drug abuse. But the pandemic has also catalyzed innovation and boldness and heightened the relevance of the GNU vision.
Now, the Kenya Private Schools Association now wants the Kenya National Examination Council (NEC) to provide raw data for the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education KCPE 2020 results for public scrutiny. And as Daniel Masiza now reports, the association fears that the upcoming Form 1 selection could be manipulated in favor of public primary schools.
Private schools proprietors and administrators are poking holes in the recently released KCPE results, in which for the first time in a long while, public schools performed better than the academies. Kenya Private Schools Association is now claiming that the standardization adopted by the Kenya National Examination Council (NEC) was manipulated in favor of public schools. Steve Odera is the national representative of the association.
When the CS Education Magoa was releasing the examination results, he was even very categorical to discriminate pupils by
Now, we do apologize for that technical hitch. We'll be working towards getting you that story later on in our bulletin. Now, moving on, landlords and landladies in Kihoto Estate are delighted after Lake Naivasha waters started receding after months of unprecedented surge. Willie Dennis Njiru caught up with a woman we featured on here on TV47 a year ago, displaced by lake waters, returning home. Take a look.
Sunny spells amidst a rainy season in Naivasha town is playing fortunes for landlords and tenants who had vacated their homes for close to more than a year, displaced by the course of Mother Nature. This is Kihoto Estate to the south of the town bordering Lake Naivasha. It was one of the most affected areas by the wake of the rising lake waters months ago. Today, the worms begin to surface for the sun glares as tenants and landlords begin to return back to their homesteads.
Kwa sababu tutakuwa tukiishi kwetu, tukisikia tuko nyumbani kabisa, hatutakuwa tukisikia kama tuko kwa road mwingine, lakini kwetu.
Perpetua Gitonga, a teacher, was forced to move out of a premise that holds 12 rental houses a year ago, and her plight was captured by TV47. Back then, she was optimistic that someday normalcy will return. Today, she couldn't be happier.
Kwetu tumekuta kila kitu kiko sawa, ingawa kwa majirani kulikuwa wanaiba waya za stima, wanaiba madirisha na milango.
Imekuwa ikipanda juu, but hii maji ni kama ile tu na mvua. Hii maji saa hii iko chini na kunanyesha. And we are very much grateful that watu watarudi na wataendelea kuishi Kihoto.
She told me of the numerous challenges that she had to cope up with since she was kicked out by the seemed like resilience force of nature. The predicament is replicated in many people here.
Marafiki, ndugu tumesaliwa nao, na dada walikuwa wananisaidia sana kwa upande wa chakula, na kuna wakati wanasaidia kulipa rent.
She adds that the cost of rental houses had since dropped from 2,500 shillings to 2,000 shillings in a bid to woo back tenants that fled the estate due to the water surge.
Tenants, ningewasihi kama wageona ni vizuri warudi. Ya tena tutafanya marekebisho ya nyumba innovation. Ya bei itaenda chini.
Maji tumenotice imerudi kabisa chini. Watu warudi makwao juu hii ni jasho ya watu.
Historians say that the rare phenomenon experienced in Lake Naivasha and other Rift Valley lakes occurs in an interval of 100 years. The last such experience was in the 1930s. The residents here can only hope that it doesn't recur. Reporting for TV47 from Kihoto Estate, Naivasha in the county of Nakuru, I'm Willie Dennis Njiru.
Well, it's time to take a short commercial break, but we'll be back with more. Remember, you can follow this live broadcast on www.tv47.co.ke. Stay tuned.
As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5 years term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that as we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision.
Oh, hi. It's not what you're thinking. It's a cup of coffee.
Coffee Movie. Together, Coffee with Movie. Every Sunday, 8 p.m. on TV47, where we bring you interesting, enticing people. Well, we've concentrated on musicians.
Yeah.
Producers.
So now I manage, because telemanagement and events management, I think, was my passion.
Right about now, we want to go beyond to the counties and to other countries. I'll see you. Let the sun stand still like Joshua time for 3 hours, but this time for only 1 hour. We bring you Coffee with Movie. Interesting, enticing guests. I'll see you. Tunaweza anza tuna Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, twende Uganda, Magufuli Land, TZ, you never know. It is Coffee with Movie. Jua unaweza enda sasa.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongeze zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Usijali, tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Ndio nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444 hash utunukiwe Credo double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
Welcome to Nairobi Christian Center Bahati. We are an Assemblies of God Church under Reverend Fred Gitahi as a senior pastor. We are located at Bahati, Makadara area in Nairobi. We run a virtual church service with online services every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. as well as the children's services from 10 a.m., teens and youth services every Saturday at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. respectively. You can follow us on Facebook.
Welcome back, you're watching TV47 Weekend. Now moving on, the UN Refugee Agency UNHCR has agreed to Kenya's plan to repatriate over 430,000 refugees living in the Dadaab and Kakuma camps. This follows a meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and UNHCR High Commissioner Filippo Grandi on Thursday evening at State House, Nairobi. According to the government, refugees from the East African countries will have the option to remain in the country through free work permits. Kenya and the United Nations High Commission for Refugees UNHCR have agreed to repatriate refugees living in the Dadaab and Kakuma refugee camps by June next year. The agreement follows a meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and UNHCR High Commissioner Filippo Grandi at State House in Nairobi last evening. In the meeting, which brought together Head of Public Service Dr. Joseph Kinyua, Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Rachel Omamo, and her Interior counterpart Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the leaders agreed to form a special joint team to finalize and implement the next steps towards the repatriation of the refugees. In April 2015, the government had set in motion plans to close the Dadaab, pointing out how the camp had degenerated from a center for solace into an allegedly breeding ground for terrorists who had orchestrated the terror attack on Garissa University. In the 2nd of April 2015 attack, 148 people lost their lives, while 79 others sustained injuries. On the 24th of March this year, CS Matiang'i issued the refugee agency with a 14-day ultimatum to develop a comprehensive exit strategy for the refugees, adding that there would be no room for negotiations. Although Kenya's decision to shut down the two camps has been heavily criticized, the repatriation strategy, which includes voluntary return as well as departures to third countries under various arrangements, was presented to the government in April this year. Ambassador Omamo says, and I quote, "We are not chasing people away, but a camp is not a permanent solution," end of quote. According to Matiang'i, the government will not relent in the repatriation program that began in 2016, insisting that both Dadaab and Kakuma camps will be closed by the end of June 2022.
Uhuru Kenyatta.
Leaders in Garissa County have welcomed the move, cautioning that the current high political temperatures in the neighboring Somalia as a result of the extension of President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo's term by 2 more years could increase the number of refugees fleeing the troubled country.
We had the experience of hosting refugees. There is a Swahili saying which says, "Adhabu ya kaburi ajuaye ni maiti," which means The person who is in the grave actually is the person to know whether it is hot or cold. But the one standing above it does not know. So when we are speaking about refugees, we know it. We know the pains. We know the sufferings. We know the distractions it has caused in Garissa County. We are not prepared to receive even one. We are asking our president, we are asking the leadership of this country under President Uhuru not to allow even one refugee.
According to the repatriation plan, refugees from the East African Community member states will have the luxury to choose between getting a free work permit to work and stay in Kenya or go back to their home country. Kenyans registered as refugees will also be verified through a digital verification exercise that is expected to begin soon, a move that is expected to clear off thousands of Kenyans registered in Dadaab and Kakuma camps as refugees. Now, a young man in Tuan slums in Kitale who has albinism is struggling to treat a cancer of the skin that started in 2003. And as Boniface Barasa now reports, Samuel Nyomo is now nursing a gaping wound in his scalp as hospitals continue to turn him away due to the large amount of money needed to treat his case.
Tuani slum is located in the outskirts of Kitale town, and in one of the cubicles tucked deep in the slum lives Samuel Nyomo. Nyomo is 27 years old, and in less than 3 decades, he has endured untold suffering. He has suffered 2 skin cancer attacks since 2003.
Sasa ugonjwa ulianza 2003 mpaka 2018 ndio wakanitibu Kenyatta huko wiki 6. Kwa hiyo wiki 6 venye waliona imeisha, wakasema huyu amepona. Sasa nikafanyako kibarua, akaanza kidogo ndio ikakuwa tena hivi.
Besides cancer, Nyomo also has albinism and is a total orphan. When we arrived at his humble adobe, we found him in pain, a gaping hole from the back of his head is giving him sleepless nights.
Saizi nasikia uchungu, hata kulala ni shida, damu tu ndio inatoka, hata sijielewi, sina fahamu, naomba usaidizi.
Upande wa nyuma wa kichwa chake ndio kumekuwa na kidonda nyuma ya sikio, na ile kidonda imeendelea kupanuka kiasi ya kwamba imeweza kushika upande wa nyuma wa kichwa yote, na mahali inaelekea sasa inafikia hata kuanza kuaffect ile skull.
Efforts to seek medication have always been rebuffed by the hospital he has visited due to lack of the colossal amount of money needed.
Therapy, na imepatikana kwamba treatment yake inahitaji 142 per cycle, na anafaa ende zaidi ya cycle 8. Tungeweza kuomba tafadhali serikali tuingilieni hapa tuweze kusaidia mwenzetu huyu Nyomo.
The now big wound started as a painless boil before it mutated into this gaping hole.
Alikuja akajikuna hapa, akakuja akaniambia, "Mai, hii ni nini?" Nikamwambia makabimba. Mtoto hiyo kitu ndiyo ilianza kumletea shida. Na madada za huyu msichana ya huyu kijana Samuel walikufa. Mama alikufa. Papa alikufa.
The odds are badly stacked against Nyomo. He is struggling with 4 rough patches at once: albinism, total orphaned, abject poverty, and cancer that causes him excruciating pain. COVID-19 has also compounded his problem.
Ndugu yetu huyu hawezi kula, immediately anakula atatoa 3/4 ya chakula yenye amekula, atatapika na atatapika pia na damu. Kwa sisi ambao tunamsaidia, labda tu ni kumsaidia upande ya usafi, aoge, tunatumia basics.
But despite the harrowing experience, Nyomo is still holding on to hope. He is optimistic that some well-wishers will help him raise the huge amount of money needed for his treatment.
Every day is a new dawn for Samuel Nyomo among thousands of Kenyans who continue to battle cancer with the hope of overcoming it some days to come. Boniface Barasa, TV47, Tuani slums in Trans Nzoia County.
Well, the power of hope there. We indeed hope that well-wishers will come on board to help Samuel see through his hospital treatment for cancer. Now, members of parliament from the Nyanza region say they are behind ODM leader Raila Odinga despite the BBI sibling rivalry over the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 and the Joint Justice and Legal Affairs Committee report. The ODM leader allies say despite the party not achieving everything they submitted in the bill, the benefits are major and they have therefore made a decision to submit the bill entirely.
Despite apparent differences among parliamentarians from Nyanza region over the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 and the Joint Justice and Legal Affairs report, the ODM stronghold is solely behind its kingpin Raila Odinga. According to Uriri Member of Parliament Mark Nyamita and his Uguncha counterpart Opiyo Wandayi, every member is entitled to their own opinion on the matter.
He allows that people can express their opinions. And you can express your opinion as much as you possibly can. And we get different, and he consults very widely, okay? So because of that robustness of debate, I could say, okay, this particular one, I don't think it is the right one. This one I think is okay. This one I don't think. It doesn't amount to division. First and foremost, let me tell you, the position of the Orange Democratic Party is that we are supporting the PBI bill. Note that we don't have issues with a few clauses. Of course we do. But we are also aware that in any constitution making, you will never have everything.
Attempts by any person to second guess our leader. So regardless of who you are or where you are, the moment we sense that you are trying to second guess our leader, then we disagree with you.
Amending the BBI bill remains the main wage driver among Raila Odinga's stalwarts, some accusing their equals of advancing selfish interests.
Even as you advance your counter opinion to that of the party and the party leader, please know that that is your personal opinion. Yes, and don't bring confusion. Don't bring confusion. Yes.
You know, we are politicians nationally, but there's also local politics, including in the House. So do not mistake internal sibling rivalry to be a problem for Baba. In sibling rivalry, even people in a house, brothers will always argue with each other of who is sleeping on the upper decker or the lower decker, who is using which spoon and things like that. So part of what you are seeing back and forth, someone blaming another one, are issues of sibling rivalry.
But even as the differences escalate, the question begs why the ODM leaders did not offer their advice to their party leader before the BBI process got to this advanced stage.
I consider it as my duty, primary duty in fact, and responsibility to defend and protect my party leader, who also happens to be the leader of my community. That there is no doubt about it. And on that, there is no negotiation.
Our family behind Raila Odinga. There is no other one. Even all those other things you are hearing across, people trying to talk at you, there's a party coming up in Nyanza. It is their democratic space. That is how democratic we are. But I can tell you, they will be lucky. They will be lucky even to become fourth in the elections.
On whether the region will remain united ahead of 2022 solely depends on the directive that will be issued by Raila Odinga. Elizabeth Mutiko, TV47 Nairobi.
Well, Elizabeth Mutuku's report takes us to a short commercial break. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned.
Country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5 years term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I don't lose.
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision.
Oh, hi. It's not what you're thinking. It's a cup of coffee. Coffee, movie. Together, coffee with movie. Every Sunday, 8 p.m. on TV47, where we bring you interesting, enticing people. Well, we've concentrated on musicians.
Yeah.
Producers.
So now I manage, because telemanagement and events management, I think, was my passion.
Right about now, we want to go beyond to the counties and to other countries. Out here, let the sun stand still like Joshua time for 3 hours, but this time for only 1 hour. We bring you coffee with movie, interesting, enticing guests. Out here, tunaweza anza tuna Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, twende Uganda, Magufuli Land, TZ, you never know. It is coffee with movie. Jua unaweza enda sasa.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongee zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Ndio nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444 hash utunukiwe Credo Double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
Welcome to Nairobi Christian Center Bahati. We are an Assemblies of God Church under Reverend Fred Gitahi as a senior pastor. We are located at Bahati, Makadara area in Nairobi. We run a virtual church service with online services every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. as well as the children's services from 10 a.m., teens and youth services every Saturday at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. respectively. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Nairobi Christian Center Bahati and on YouTube Nairobi Christian Center. Be blessed.
Candace, what's that?
I brought you a small bonus.
Bonus for what?
You got us 299 family dinners, 64 kisses on the cheek, 12 road trips to see grandma, 42 jokes from daddy, 49 laughs from mommy.
In over 60 years of dealing with numbers, we've learned that the numbers that matter the most to you are the ones that matter the most to us. NCBA Bank. Go for it.
At NCBA, we can tailor-make your SME business solution to suit your business. It's what we have done for over 50,000 businesses so far.
50,000? Mommy, that is 50,000 families with 50,000 meals every day and 50,000 dreams coming to life.
We know that it's not about the business, but about caring for loved ones. Get NCBA SME banking solutions. The name is NCBA, and the numbers that matter to you matter to us. NCBA Bank. Go for it.
As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter a too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage?
Welcome back. You are watching TV47 Weekend. Let's now take a look at what is happening in the counties. Leaders in Baringo County have called upon the national government to come up with an irrigation scheme in the banditry zone to give pastoralists an alternative source of livelihood to curb banditry in the region. And in Mombasa County, a lawyer has been charged with attempting to obtain 1.1 billion shillings from a Chinese construction company. Petronila Goren with these and more stories from the counties.
Bandits in Baringo County staged an attack on Thursday, holding 4 security camps in Mukutani under siege. An exchange of fire between security officers and bandits was reported during the attack. Leaders in the county have now called upon the national government to come up with alternative sources of livelihood, such as an irrigation scheme in the banditry-prone region to curb the insecurity.
We need more of this kind of irrigation schemes that will help us mitigate the issue of food insecurity. At the same time, will address the human insecurity.
Baringo South MP Charles Kamuren lauded the ongoing security operation by the national government, saying it will restore peace in the region.
This one now relies on government to support us urgently with that 26 million for Mukutane after this operation, which is ongoing. And we supported the operation, but after operation, what next? We need to sustain the people of Mukutane to coexist and live together. And the best way is to enhance farming there.
In Bungoma County, a clergy has decried over the shortage of COVID-19 vaccine ahead of the reopening of schools. According to the SEK Bishop in Bungoma, George Mechumo, the government should restock enough COVID-19 vaccines instead of concentrating on the constitution amendment process.
Tunajua walimu wamepokea chanjo, lakini wazazi wa watoto hawa hawajapokea chanjo. Wana uwezekano ya kwamba wanaweza kuambukiza watoto na watoto wakaambukiza watoto wenzao. Kwa hivyo suluhisho ni chanjo. Iwapo hakuna pesa katika Kenya, tunataka kuomba serikali, ikiwa inajali wananchi na maslahi ya Kenya, iweke kando mipangilio ya referendum ya BBI ili iweze kutumia hizi pesa kuleta madawa ya chanjo katika Kenya.
Elsewhere, a Mombasa lawyer has been charged with attempting to obtain 1.1 billion shillings under false pretense from a Chinese construction company. Stephen Kithi Kombo is facing 2 counts where the state is accusing him of falsely receiving money in a land transaction deal. Gomba is accused of attempting to obtain 1,091,502 shillings from China Wuyi Kenya Limited, pretending he could sell the farm a plot belonging to Tourism Finance Corporation.
July 2016, investigators of county in Mombasa County attempted to obtain 1,091,502,000 from China Wuyi Kenya Limited by falsely pretending that we are in position to sell them outside of land. Reference number Mombasa Block 169, the property of Tourism Finance Corporation of New was false.
Mr. Gombo is further accused of obtaining 20 million shillings from the construction firm. He is charged that on April 18, 2017, with intent to defraud, he obtained the money from the firm by falsely pretending that it was part of payment to secure vacant possession of the plot. The advocate who appeared before Senior Resident Magistrate Rita Amwai denied the 2 offences. He was granted a 500,000 shillings cash bail with an alternative bond of 2 million shillings with one assurity of a similar amount. The case will be mentioned on May 17th. Patronila Goren, TV47.
Thank you, Petronila Goren, for that report. Police in Gitaru, Kiambu County are in pursuit of a 23-year-old girl who on Wednesday night allegedly stabbed her boyfriend to death and ran away. According to family members and neighbors of the deceased, the suspect, Ann Waithira, is alleged to have stabbed Kelvin Kamami 2 times before she went into hiding. Police have launched a manhunt for the lady.
Neighbor alisikia kelele akakuja akaniita, ndio tukaenda na yeye. Wakati tunaenda na yeye sasa kuangalia kwa nyumba ya kijana yangu, tukakutana na huyo msichana kama anatoka. Sasa mimi nilifikiri hata labda anatoroka, labda ndiye alikuwa anapigwa. Akatoka na sisi mimi nikaingia. Niliingia peke yangu, sasa neighbor hakuingia. Ndio nikakuta kijana yangu mezani hakuna mtu. Nikajaribu kumuita haitiki. Nikaenda bedroom, ndio nilimkuta damu inamwagika kabisa kutoka hapa shingo. Nikajaribu kumzimba, nikaona haiwezekani. Ndio nikakuja nikaita neighbor. Neighbor akakuja tukampindua. Na wakati hiyo nilimpindua. Sasa aache kuangalia vile alikuwa anaangalia upande. Nikampindua sasa akaangalia juu. Neighbor akakuja, tukamwangalia tukaona hajakufa. nikaacha kama neiba anamuweka shuka, na mimi nikakuja nikafungua gate na nikarugurumisha gari. Ndio tukakutana na neiba, kaniambia hata hakuna haja, amekufa.
Ni kijana tu mdogo kwa zako na 29 years. Tuseme alikuwa hajaoa juu huyo alikuwa gatu girlfriend. Sasa kwangu naomba tu serikali tufanyie tu justice, huyu msichana atafutwe, apatikane, na serikali wafanye tu venye inatakikana. Juu kwetu sisi tuko na uchungu mwingi sana kuruzi mtoto tu, na ni yeye tu kijana kwetu kwa familia yangu, tuko na uchungu mwingi sana.
Kweli kuna mwanaume fulani aliuawa pale Gitaru, na aliuawa na msichana ambaye inasemekana alikuwa bibi yake, ambaye amekaa na yeye mwaka moja na akatoroka. Ni kweli tunatafuta huyo msichana, atuambie ni nani aliua huyo mzee, kama anajua ama kama yeye pia alihusika katika hicho kifo.
Now, in the wake of the Labor Day celebrations tomorrow, where President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to laud the working class citizens, Kenyans are also anticipating a review of the COVID-19 curfew and lockdown measures in the 5 infection-prone counties. This is according to a survey conducted by OnePlus Kenya.
Compelled by medical and empirical evidence a month ago, President Uhuru Kenyatta issued the second public order of 2021 on the COVID-19 pandemic, with the rate of COVID-19 infections having gone up 10 times higher, a weakened health infrastructure and increased death rates. Kenya was squarely in the grip of the third wave of the pandemic. To avert a national health crisis and upon the advice of the National Security Council, the Council of Governors and the National Emergency Response Committee on COVID-19, Uhuru declared Nairobi, Kajiado, Kiambu, Machakos and Nakuru disease-infected zones. Cessation of movement by air, road or rail into or out of the zoned counties, suspension of public and in-person gatherings, curfew hours increased from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the zoned counties, suspension of all physical and in-person and congressional worship, immediate suspension of all ongoing physical learning except for candidates sitting for the examinations and those in medical training, suspension of all sporting activities including members clubs, operations of bars suspended in the zoned counties, and similarly the sale of alcohol in restaurants and eateries in the same prohibited. All restaurants and eateries in the zoned counties shall provide takeaway services only. With the lapse of the 30 days time frame given by the head of state since his last presidential address on March 26th, Kenyans are anticipating his next directive on how to grapple with that wave that is quickly gaining momentum and how to make ends meet in observance of the anti-coronavirus guidelines and protocols. One Pulse Kenya Up, a UK-based mobile consumer survey company, did a survey in the last 24 hours on whether the president should open the 5 locked counties in his next address. One Pulse spoke to 573 Kenyans aged between 18 to 65 across the 47 counties. 71% of Kenyans think that the president should open the 5 locked counties. 18% think the disease-infected zones should remain closed, while 10% say they are not sure. On whether the 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew hours in the 5 counties should be reviewed, 57% say the curfew should start a bit later. 29% feel the curfew should be completely lifted, while only 10% claim the curfew hours should be increased to earlier. One Pulse also asked Kenyans which facilities should remain open. 47% said places of worship, 11% said bars and restaurants, and 9% said sporting facilities, while 15% said none of the above. However, 18% feel that all facilities should be allowed to remain open. In the Gazette notice dated 12th April, Interior CS Fred Matiang'i directed that the ongoing curfew will run until May 29, 2021. Grace Josephine, TV47.
Well, let's take a look at some business news. And President Uhuru Kenyatta has assented to the Division of Revenue Bill 2021. The signing of the bill into law paves way for the enactment of the County Allocation of Revenue Bill 2021 and the Appropriation Act 2021-2022. Present at State House in Nairobi during the signing ceremony was Speaker of the National Assembly Justin Muturi, his Senate counterpart Ken Lusaka, Head of Public Service Dr. Joseph Kinyua, and Treasury CS Ukur Yatani. Now, tea farmers in Kisii County have today conducted elections of directors of various tea factories within the county, despite Kenya Tea Development Agency (KTDA) challenging the move in court since last year. Addressing the press after announcing election results for Ogembo Tea Factory zones at Tenderi Primary School ground in Gucha Sub-County in Kisii County, the returning officer Jimmy Mumanyi said that the new directors will begin work on Monday next week, regardless of threats from incumbent directors. Newly elected directors led by James Ombasa of Bamachoge Chache Tea Zone and Fred Mokua of Sengera vowed to fight corruption in the tea factories, which they claim has reduced farmers' earnings.
Watu wetu wanapata bonus na iko chini. Mojawapo ni mambo ya kuleta ufisadi, mambo ya kuni. Mtu analeta gari mbili, anaandikiwa gari 12. Alafu malipo yote ikitoka hapo analipwa, naona mkulima amechukuliwa au amenyanganywa gari 10.
Now, the ban on maize importation from East African countries has affected residents of West Pokot, an area prone to severe drought throughout the year. Many residents buy maize from the neighboring countries, which sustains them throughout the year. The locals are now pleading with the national government to supply them with relief food for survival, since the ban on maize importation has severely affected sources of food.
Nikahimiza serikali wafungue custom duty hapa Kanyerus, ambapo hapo ndio mahindi mingi inatoka. Wafungue custom duty hapa Karita, mali junction ya Kachelipa na Karita. So hiyo custom duty ndakana ifunguliwe mara moja, na pia wafungue custom duty pale Kanyao. Hizo ndio entry points 3 ambaye bidhaa za Uganda zinatoka zinaingia Kenya, na especially mahindi na mambo ya sukari na mambo ya mchele. Hizo ndio vitu ambaye inakucha kwa wingi sana, na pia ya sukari.
Uganda ni cheap kwa sababu hata kama mafuta yao inatoka bandari ya Mombasa na